For letting us take a break for here for about 5 minutes. We're back, and we'd like to call on this time Davin Madden with the Health Department under the number 2 in new business, Health Collective Impact Meeting Update. That's page 25.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me here this morning to take just a few moments to give you an update on the collective impact meeting that we had on May the 6th over at Lanetree Country Club. Is it okay if I get excited about this? Because I do get excited about this kind of stuff. This is why I'm in the business that I'm in. I think this is something that was a good meeting, and I'm going to give you just a very quick summary with a close with a little a point that I wanted to make in regards to it. First of all, this was a 3-hour get-together to talk really about who we are as far as health stakeholders in the county. We had over 13 agencies that showed up. We had a remarkable showing of the commissioners, county manager, hospitals, health departments, the military base, East Point, Goshen Medical, YMCA, United Way, so on. I mean, we had a wonderful showing of people that came out. And there was over 42 people there. And this was the movers and shakers in a large part for Wayne County and invested in our health. And the point of the meeting was a little academic in the standpoint that we wanted to talk about collective impact, and it's a structured format that sets down and talks about, first of all, what are we doing, where are we going, what drives health in our county, what impedes health in our county. And, you know, we know a lot of that already. We keep hearing about the messages. And one thing that I do want to say here, to throw this in, is, you know, I don't want our community in Wayne County to get tired of hearing that message. Instead, I want everyone to help us pursue those efforts to be healthier. The thing about it is we have a lot of wonderful collaborations, as we've all talked about, but you know, when you look at our health demographics, we still have areas to improve and make people healthier. And this is what the meeting was about, to look at what we are doing and to realize our value to each other, all these agencies, the value that we have, to find out who wasn't at the table that we could also bring in and their values, because we all do a strong part, and some of it, you know, we work in the same arena, and that was part of what we wanted to determine. So even though we go through this meeting and we talk about who we are and what we're doing, the value of what we're doing and how it impacts people, the one thing that we talked about to conclude that was basically how do we move forward? What is the driver for this group of people or anybody that's invested to move forward with improving the health of Wayne County? And that starts by having a group of people. We have groups in Wayne County, different groups that do different activities to improve and promote the health of people in Wayne County, including diabetes groups, obesity task forces, minority health steering committees. We have healthy communities groups, but we don't have a centralized group in and of itself that has all these people. We pass by and see each other in meetings, and we do good things, and we have a great collaboration. And so part of the meeting was to kind of reaffirm that connection, that relationship, and figure out now. We know what we need to do. We know what's driving health outcomes, but how do we improve the model that we have, and who needs to be at the table, and what resources do we need? And that's going to be something that you know, we'll have to talk about too as we move this forward. We're planning on getting together now in June and start having the kind of initial meeting of what we brought out of this collective impact. The first parts between now and then have really been structuring meetings to talk about, okay, how do we want to structure this so that when we show up at the table that we can develop some outcomes, we can develop some action to be able to move forward. And so I'm excited about that because, you know, it's easy to get into meetings, it's easy to talk about what we're doing, but sometimes, you know, we're so busy with everything that, you know, the wheels keep rolling. And this isn't a sprint for us. That's something that's important, I think, for everyone to know that's listening. And for the commissioners, all of you that were in attendance, you heard this. It's not a sprint for us to become healthier, to make our community healthier. It is a marathon. Now, we don't need to drag it out, because as someone wisely said, marathons are a measurable distance and they do come to an end. But this is somewhat of a long a long-term and the short-time measure to try to how to have an improvement on our health. And how we do that is, like I said, by first of all, strengthening our relationships in Wayne County with all those that are involved in health. Because as you've heard me say before, our resources are changing. Some of the grants that were out there in abundance, now they're much more competitive and they're limited. And so how do we utilize resources to do that? We know what the big factors are in Wayne County that's impacting our health. It's cancer, it's obesity, it's heart disease. We know that. But here's what we got to get excited about, that these are the results of the true issues. They are results of the true issue, which is our diet and our lack of physical exercise. That's the message that we need to start out with, and that's what I think this collective impact got down to. One of the ideas was every parent should be walking in Wayne County to set an example for their children. Why can't Wayne County lose 1 million pounds? These are some ideas that came out of this meeting. Why can't we? Set the bar high. Let's go. Let's strive for that. Let's get excited about the message. Let's not get tired of hearing the message, because that's what's going to change our health demographics. So with that being said, I guess I'll just close this out in case you have any questions. We're understanding what the success of a healthy community is, and we know that it's not a single change. And that's part of what we got out of this meeting. It's a process. And it's a process that not just doesn't change one thing, it changes the individual, it changes our environment, and it also changes our priorities. And it isn't enough to say that we can be healthier. We have to agree as a community, commissioners, as our stakeholders, that we shall be healthier in Wayne County. And healthy is not just about losing weight, it's about emotional, mental, and physical health. All of it combined is spiritual health. It's all tied in together. But part of that starts with this right here, our body. And that's one thing that we can improve on. And so I want to say I appreciate your attendance to this meeting, because our facilitators from the universities were very impressed with the turnout of this. They were really impressed with the people that showed up, the quantity of people, and the quality of people that came to this meeting, because they said it was probably one of the most involved meetings that they had seen in a long time. Of the people there, the comments that were shared, the respect that was given to each other, and to talk about, we want to do something. We're not here just to talk about what we already know. We're here to talk about ideas to do something different, to bring everyone together, and to figure out how do we move forward into making our rankings, those state and county health rankings, our community health assessment data, how do we change that for the better, so that when we stand up here a year from now or stand up here 2 years from now, we can say, look, we had this impact and this is what we've done for Wayne County.
Any comments from Mr. Madden?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Pate?
I said this at the last meeting too, that I thought I got a lot out of that meeting we had that day, and I thought it was very productive. Two of the biggest things we all know that really hurts us is smokers, and I'm not picking on smokers because I smoked for 20 years, and then overeating, which I do my share of that too. But I have been trying to really cut back. Matter of fact, I just had a Nutri-Grain bar. That's all I've had today, and coffee. So I'm trying. So we've got to lead by example as commissioners, and I'm going to continue to remain vocal about this because I know how important it is to our economy. A healthy worker is a worker who shows up for work and gets the job done. An unhealthy worker will not be there. They will be absent. So we've got to continue to push this and let our citizens know that they're out there listening, that we're all in this together, and we all got to try to live a better and healthier lifestyle. Thank you.
And Mr. Pate? Any others? I just really appreciate you putting this together and getting the facilitator. And the commissioners have been looking at the cost and driving it down to money and what it is costing Wayne County, the citizens, the taxpayers, the stakeholders, the providers have to receive those funds to pay for their overhead. But as what I pulled from the meeting, Mr. Pate and the others, is that if we're better at what we eat and exercise, then the chances of us ending up at a hospital or doctor's office is cut. There's a percentage, whether it's a 3, 5, 20, whether it's inheritance or whatever, but what I got from the meeting, from the stakeholders that were there, is that if we can do this, it's not going to cost us this. And if you put a pencil to it, I think it will behoove us to create incentives as we move forward as a board, as the commissioners to put together plans with the formation of this group to come together and in some way create incentives for people to get into a healthier lifestyle, no matter what it is, as indicated by this group, and maybe have something that we can see that a year from now or 2 years from now, we don't have to pay as much as what we've been paying. Maybe we can reduce our overhead in tax rates. Maybe we can reduce our expenditures as far as spending. So I just really appreciate, Mr. Madden, you and your staff, and you're doing what you're doing. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate for you all for your commitment to this, because as you said, we know that a healthy community drives an economically enhanced community. They're not exclusive of each other. So I appreciate you investing in that with your time, because that's the message that we have to keep sending out till we get everyone engaged in this process. Thank you.
Thank you. One other thing, too, I understand that there was something said about jobs and companies looking, people who work for them that are healthier, who can stay on the job longer, who can be more productive.
That's
I thought that the creating jobs, increasing that in the economy, in manufacturing, that came up too, and that was quite enlightening.
And that goes with what we've been supporting with enhancing our physical activity areas in the community, and our parks, growing our parks and our other recreational activities, is because when businesses are shopping for places to go, that's one of the factors that they look for. Like you said, they look for a healthy population, because that's who's going to keep their business going. They want to be able to recruit those people and retain those people. So thank you again.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Madden. Number 3, applications for property tax exemption from the tax office, Mr. David Ward, and you can also applications for present use value. These are action items that we'll take individually, but we'll certainly go through those. Mr. Ward, thank you.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, we have applications for property tax exemptions. We have 3 of them. One is from the Islamic Center of Goldsboro, and it is for a church property used for religious purposes on Fedlon Trail. They actually filed a late application. Had they filed a timely application, they would have been approved or would have qualified. Since they filed a late one, action by the board is necessary to approve that application.
What is the pleasure of the board? Mr. Cromartie, motion is on the floor by Mr. Cromartie that we, for these applications of exemption, that they be approved. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed? Thank you. Number 4, application for present use value.
Okay. Applications for present use value. We have, I believe, 7 of those. And again, these were, had these applications been sent in timely, these individuals would have qualified for present use value. Since they were filed late, then action by the board is necessary for these applications to be approved, and I believe there are 7 applications there. You want me to go over each one, or how do you want to handle that? I did pull out.
It's whatever is the pleasure of the board. We received these Thursday. We've had all weekend to look over them. If there's any questions, Mr. Daugherty?
Yes, I believe we're pulling out page 32 to have separate action on that particular one.
Yes,
Is that correct? So
Okay.
there's 6 items remaining?
6, that is correct.
Yes, and Mr. Chairman, I move the adoption of all 6 of these requests.
All right, motion's on the floor to approve the 6 requested applications for the present use value. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed, thank you. Mr. Ward, would you like to go over the one?
We have another application, which was a late application for present use value, and I believe that Mr. Acock.
Okay, Mr. Acock.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I need to exclude myself from this actions since me and my family was involved in this one. I need to recuse from all.
Okay, Mr. Acock is noted as recusing himself from this action. Mr. Ward.
Okay, and this is very similar to the others. It was a late application for present use value. Again, had they applied timely, they would have qualified, so action by the board is necessary to approve this late application.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion we approve, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayo. Motion's on the floor that we approve the request for the present use value assessment. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. Thank you, that's unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Ward.
Before you leave,
Mr. Pate?
Mr. Ward, would you explain for those who are watching and listening the process on this? Because it seems like we're continuing to get more and more of these, and I want to be harsh on anybody if they deserve, exclusion or, or present land use, either way. But I'm beginning to wonder if people are looking at the application, the forms that we're sending out to them, and they're seem like they're being put to the side, and maybe they're not strong enough, or can you just describe that process?
Yes, sir, Mr. Pate. What happens is, first of all, on applications for homestead exclusions or exemptions, which we have some, occasionally, those you have until actually June 1st to apply for those. On these other applications, such as these applications for exemption or present use value, you have until end of January to apply for those. And what we've attempted to do is, in the past, especially on present use value applications, we've sent out a letter, pretty well, we think well-worded letter, letting the folks know what they need to do, as well as include an estimate of what the deferred taxes would be if they didn't complete the application, and included an application with them. So, we've gone to what we felt like were pretty extensive lengths trying to get them to understand we need to fill this application out. Also on the letter, we gave them a person in our office who handles these things, her name and her phone number. If you have any questions at all, please call. And we continue to have folks that just seem to ignore that. Now, we have changed that format somewhat, but we still try and send a letter out notifying when property changes hands and it has present use value. It may involve relatives, it may not involve relatives, to let them know that, you've got this situation, you need to do something about it, otherwise, you may get hit with deferred rollback.
Can you let them know what the amount of money would be?
We normally have given them our estimate of what the taxes would be.
When you get a chance, just share one of those copies of these form letters, and I'd just like to take a look at one of them.
Sure, be glad to.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I like, I'm just curious, one question.
Mr. Cromartie and Mr. Mayo.
What would you say the approximate number of total people who request who make the request on time versus the number who are late? So I'm just wondering what is the
Good question, and I don't really have that. I would say
a ballpark?
50%, 60%. It's a guesstimate at this point.
So
Yeah.
50% might get it in on time and 50% might get it in late. I agree that, see, here's what I was wondering, if there was such a small percentage getting in late, that it was just an oversight. If it's 50-50, then there's some teaching needs to take place or something else. Because that's what I was trying to see. As you were asking your question, I was wondering if we were talking about a little bit of folk or a lot. This 50-50, then we need some more, something, maybe over the TV or something. We just need some more for the public. Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
What I'm seeing here, David, is a lot of these that come before us is property that families have inherited or have been given to family members. My concern is this, is that we would have a lot less of these petitions for land use if it stayed in the family or a relative, it goes from children, from a mom and dad to children. I don't see why that, and I got caught in this, by the way, years ago. Why, if it's a farm and it's under land use, why it has to be redone just because it goes from a mother and dad to their children? As long as the farm number is assigned to that farm, they should be under land use if it's 10 acres or more. So I really don't see the reason why we're seeing, a lot of this is because of the way the statute's written.
That's correct. Yes, sir. The statutes require a new application anytime it changes hands, even if it is between relatives. They do require the new owners to apply and qualify. And in order to qualify, you have to apply within a certain time period, especially under present use value, to continue that use without the interruption and without the rollback.
Maybe we need to make some possible changes in the statute, because I just don't see having go from relative to relative having to go through this,
That would take, like I say, legislative action to do that.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Mr. Aycock?
Yes, just for everyone, just to keep in mind now, this only occurs when property changes hands. That may only happen to someone once or twice, maybe 3 times in a lifetime. It's not that they're I don't feel like most people are intentionally doing it. I mean, it's kind of like riding a bicycle. Once you learn how, you don't forget. But this is something you only do one or some people never in a lifetime. And also, remember, we'll pick on the attorneys a minute, Mr. Parker. All land transactions have to basically go through an attorney. And sometimes some attorneys are better than others. I'm going to leave it at that.
Any other comments, Mr. Ward?
No, sir.
Mr. Ward? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I think one thing that David didn't say when he was explaining the process is the statutes do not require the tax office to send the letter out, and the tax office is doing that, trying to help the taxpayers in Wayne County.
So the statute change would come from a county, or would it come from the state as far as being required?
What Mr. Mayo was saying would have to come from the state. Mm-hmm. Wayne County is sending these letters out to the new property owners when they learn that there is a new property owner. That is not required by the statute.
So the statute you're following is state statute?
Well, yes, sir. We follow the state statute, but it does, as Mr. Parker said, it doesn't require us to send out the letters, applications, encouraging the new property owner to come in timely and fill out these applications. We're not required to do that, but we try to do it just to notify them.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Mayor.
One more thing, David. One of the things that I'm hearing from the citizens of our county is that if they're in a land use situation and they lose it for some reason through transfer to children or whatever, then they are penalized the previous 3 years. Is that correct?
Right, yes, sir.
And most of the citizens feel like this is flat wrong, that 1 year. I think that's one of the reasons why we're seeing a lot of requests too, is because I've seen some penalties here, $18,000, $20,000 when you go back, 3 years on penalty. So I'm saying that we may want to take a look, and we have the man present today that we might want to consider some type of statute change in the future to make this easier.
Yes, sir. And again, that would take legislative, action to do that.
Let me follow up on just one quick
Wait a
thought,
second.
because I-
Wait a second. Wait a second.
I'm finished.
You finished? Mr. Cromartie?
So land changes hands.
Yes,
The new property owner didn't request for a land use reduction.
that's correct.
The tax office recognized that that wasn't asked for, so they will go back and assess that roll back and charge that new property owner 3 years previous because that person did not ask for it.
Yes, sir.
In case wasn't aware of it.
Let me explain that to you first. The present use value, the statutes, they were put in place probably back in the early 70s, 73, 74, somewhere in there. And I believe the concern at that time was family farms, family farmers, prices of property were getting high enough that trying to continue to farm it was getting so it wasn't viable anymore. These were put in place, and what happens is the state, every time a county does a countywide reevaluation, the North Carolina Department of Revenue, through a committee, I think with NC State University and some other folks, put together a manual, sent out to all the counties, basically looking and seeing what cultivated land, what the cash rents are averaging in the different major land resource areas in the state. You look at those, you go in, you try to set everything up at market value, what things are selling for, what property it would be valued at. If you apply and/or qualify for present use value, the present use value rate is a lower rate. That lower rate is applied to the qualifying properties. They're taxed at a lesser amount. The difference in what they're taxed at, what they would have been taxed at market value, is carried forward as deferred taxes. If property changes hands, the new owner can't qualify or does not apply timely to qualify, then you roll back for an actual 4-year period, 3 years in current. And what you roll back on is the taxes in the difference at what you did pay and what you would have paid in the market value, plus interest, 3rd year back, 2nd year back, 1st year. In other words, that's what you're actually taxed on.
I think I grasped that, but the fact remains is that new property owner will be having to pay that money when he didn't own the property those 3 years.
Actually, the lien, the taxes that we roll back on, they are a lien against the property, just like anything would be. Normally, what most folks do, if it's being transferred to an entity that maybe can't qualify, the attorneys, whoever's handling it, the agent, whatever it may be, normally they will calculate those taxes or ask us to calculate it for them. They will apply it to the owner that owned the property, was receiving the benefits, and for the current year, usually prorate that. Normally is what they will do.
The bills go, we bill with the old property owner for those 3 years' taxes. But it's a lien against the new owner's property.
Exactly.
So it's a double-edged sword.
Okay, so the previous owner gets the bill,
Yes, sir.
not that current owner.
Correct. But it's a lien against the new owner's property if it's not paid.
Right.
You mean that if it's not paid by the old owner, the new owner's gonna have to ante
It's a
up?
lien against the
Potential.
property he purchased, he or she purchased, yes, sir.
Well, you're still penalizing the new owner.
Potential.
Potentially.
And the seller too.
Well, that's true, but the seller, yes, it's, all right.
And one thing too, while I'm up here, Mr. Mayor, I wanted to address maybe mainly for the public. The reason the penalty was put on there, in my understanding, was to deter developers and people like that from coming in, jumping in the program for a few years, getting the benefit, and then jumping out and building a subdivision or building a shopping center. This is made mainly for the farmers. That's why they put the penalty side on there, was to deter that kind of activity in the farm use program, my understanding.
Yes, and that's a good understanding too.
Mr. Aycock?
Yes, David just partially cleared it up. I just wanted to make sure that Mr. Cromartie knew that the tax notice actually goes out to the previous owner.
Yes.
And, you know, if previous owner doesn't pay it, I mean, you may try to get it from the present owner, but the previous owner actually gets the tax bill.
Yes, sir. That is true.
Any other questions, comments for tax department? Thank you, Mr. Ward. Number 5, the Dobbs County Estate, Section 9, and revision of Section 8, final subdivision plat. Mr. Price.
Sure, Mr. Chairman, I may want to take a moment to, I think we skipped over one item in unfinished business. It's about the voting on the subdivision plats. There was an article in the newspaper that was stated that all the plats would have to come back to this meeting because the vote was not unanimous at the last meeting. I think after the newspaper article came out, that was clarified that your vote at the last meeting was the final vote. So we had some plats that were approved at the planning board last time that you're not seeing today.
Mr. Parker, you want to elaborate on that?
And that's what the statute did not require this, although there's a bill before this General Assembly now that would require, basically.
Yes, sir.
It says you can't pass it the day you have a public hearing.
So what are you saying, Mr. Price?
I think we just got one plat for you today for you to approve.
Thank you.
Dobbs County Estate, Section 9, a revision of Section 8. That was Grace Jones Road, B. Arcadia. This is lot 73-280. The entire tract is 23 acres. It's on the north side of Dobbs County Courthouse Road. Planning board recommends it be approved as presented.
What's the pleasure of the board?
I move adoption.
Thank you, Mr. Daugherty. Motion's on the floor that we adopt the Section 8 final subdivision plat. That's it. Is that correct? Mr. Daugherty, just clarify your motion, just to make sure I'm...
That would be Section 9 and revision of Section 8, final subdivision plat. Can we approve that?
Thank you. Okay, the motion's on the floor. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed? Thank you. Number 6, establish a public hearing on proposed emergency services cost recovery ordinance for the County of Wayne. Before you have in your packet a emergency services cost recovery ordinance for the County of Wayne, North Carolina. The title of this ordinance shall be known and may be cited as the Emergency Service Cost Recovery Ordinance for the County of Wayne, North Carolina. It is an ordinance that has to be established, and to do that, you have to have a public hearing. Mr. Parker, would you just elaborate on before we have an ordinance change and how we proceed with ordinance changes?
Right.
Or setting of ordinances?
You would have a public hearing to give the public an opportunity to give you their opinion as to whether or not you should adopt such an ordinance.
What is the pleasure of the board to establish a public hearing on this ordinance?
I make a motion that we set the date for the public hearing.
Okay, hold on one second. Motion's on the floor that we set a date for a public hearing. The county manager has asked that we set a public hearing. Let me pull the date on that. What page is that? That is
40. 41.
Page 40.
Yeah, 40.
June the 18th.
June 18th, yeah.
Page 40.
County manager is asking that we set a public hearing on June the 18th at 9:15 a.m. Okay, motions what's the pleasure of the board then? Did someone make a motion?
I did.
Mr. Aycock?
I made the motion.
Okay. Mr. Aycock made the motion that we set the public hearing. Any discussion?
Yes.
Mr. Aycock?
I would like to clear up one thing. There was an article in the paper yesterday, and I just need to clear up one thing on it. The article said that the commissioners had asked for this. I've had several fire chiefs to come to me in the last 3 or 4 months and question this because some of the surrounding counties has a resolution similar to this, not exactly, but similar. And this has been my project. This will be presented to the commissioners now, but the commissioners, as the paper stated, had not asked for this, only the fire commissioner, which I'm in that position. This has been my project, and I've worked on it with the assistance of OES, but now it will be presented to the commissioners for their either approval or denial. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Aycock. Any other discussion?
Well,
Mr. Cromartie.
I'm pleased this moment to hear that Commissioner Aycock had been working on this, because newspaper article yesterday left me somewhat at odds as to exactly what this was about, because I had not heard it, been aware of it. But just for the public's knowledge, I would like for it to be written in the newspaper so that it draws a real clear relationship between exactly how number 6 is written and the fact that, as the article in the newspaper stated, a person could be charged for any excessive time spent at an accident or some fuel spill. And while it did reference, it sounded like commercial vehicles might be the biggest culprits of that, I'm concerned that it could be put as another fee on the general public, and not to hearken back to the person, one of the persons who was down here about user fees, but anytime we add any cost to what the public could incur, I stand to wonder if it can become a user fee, as that person spoke of at the public comment.
Mr. Aycock.
Yes, really what we're acting on today is to establish a public hearing. After we, establish the public hearing, my feelings is before this is acted on, we will need to have a work session on it, and that would be the proper time to discuss all of the facts and fundamentals of this is at the work session.
In general, just for clarity for the commissioners, it's certainly up to the discretion of the commissioners when to have a work session. You can have a work session prior to the public hearing. After you hear from the public hearing, I assume that this is available. Now it has been made public. This description is made public. Or the commissioners can have a work session after they hear from the public hearing, after they hear from the public in response to what they have read and what we have discussed. But it's up to the pleasure of the board whether you have a work session prior to or after a public hearing.
Mr. King.
Mr. Pate.
I would prefer that we do this after we have the work session, after we have the public hearing, give the public the opportunity to speak up, because I need to hear what they've got to say before I can make a decision myself.
Yes, sir.
I agree, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, I agree, Mr. Chairman.
I agree.
Mr. Donner? Okay. Any discussions? Well, the motion on the floor is to establish, Mr. Aycock, did
Public hearing.
you make the motion that we have a public hearing,
Yes, sir.
and we establish that on June 18th at 9:15. Any other discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed? Thank you. Thank you for the discussion. Berkeley Mall fireworks display on July the 4th, 2013, it's page 45.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve as written.
Thank you, Mr. Doherty. Motion's on the floor to approve the and authorize this Berkeley Mall fireworks display on July the 4th, 2013. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed? Small Business Week in Wayne County proclamation, page 46. Mr. Mayo, would you please read?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Whereas small businesses are the backbone of our economy at every level, and whereas more than half of Americans either own or work for a small business, and whereas small businesses create an estimated 2 out of every 3 new jobs in the United States each year, and whereas the state of North Carolina is home for more than 800,000 small businesses, and whereas small businesses make up the majority of the more than 500 members of the Wayne County Chamber of Commerce and the clients of the Wayne Business and Industry Center, of which the Small Business Center is one of its successful components. And whereas small businesses add strength to Wayne County's certified work-ready community status, and whereas the Wayne County Chamber of Commerce and the Small Business Center and Wayne Community College provide a range of activities to assist, educate, and promote local small businesses. And whereas the nation sets aside a week every year to celebrate the impact of outstanding entrepreneurs, small business owners, and their employees. Now therefore be it resolved, the Wayne County Board of Commissioners recognizes the innovations and contributions of small businesses and declares its support for small businesses. Now therefore, be it further resolved, the Wayne County Board of Commissioners does hereby proclaim May 19 through 25th, 2013 as Small Business Week in Wayne County, and encourages all citizens to express their gratitude and support for small business in Wayne County. This the 21st day of May 2013. Make a motion we accept, Mr. Chairman.
Motion's on the floor that we adopt this proclamation. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed? Board of Commissioners comments. Board of Commissioner comments, Mr. Vail.
I'm going to be a good commissioner today and not comment.
Mr. Daugherty.
I will follow suit.
Mr. Mayo.
Yes, real quick, I did want to expound just a minute on this being Small Business Week. Please go out to Berkeley Mall and take a look at the displays that are out there and see what small business is doing and has done for many years for our county and state. Small business is what makes this country. And so we need to encourage and support the Wayne County Development Alliance, Eastern Region, all of us that are involved in economic development. The other thing real quick, Mr. Chairman, is that on May 16th, I was able to go out to Lane Tree Country Club, and the Chamber of Commerce had the Leadership Wayne class of 2012 and 2013. Our chairman, Mr. Chairman King, spoke at that, and this is the first time that I have really been involved with the Leadership Wayne. But there are so many people throughout this county, in all different areas of this county, that are coming together and moving this county forward. We have people from the Cooperative Extension, public schools, private accounting firms, the County of Wayne, City of Goldsboro, Mount Olive College, United Way, Hospital. All of these people are coming together for a common goal, and that's to move our county forward. So this was a really good meeting. It was very informative, and that's one of the better meetings I've been into lately. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayo. Mr. Cromartie?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would like just a moment to go back to a subject that I brought up earlier concerning appointment committees. First, I'd like to thank this board and the chairman of the appointments committee for, at several times, saying to the public that please use the opportunities to sign up to serve on different committees. My original question, maybe, and my concern was that folk who were serving on a particular committee did not get an opportunity to express their desire to continue to serve, or at least receive a letter letting them know that their time was up and they would not be reappointed. I happen to have served with a gentleman on the planning board that, best of my knowledge and based upon my conversation with him, did not receive any letter that let him know that he was, well, he could look at his, I guess, maybe something and see when his time would be up. But my understanding was that a person would receive a letter that gave an opportunity to say, yes, I would like to continue to serve. I would just want that process to be clarified so the public would have a real clear understanding. If it's your phone board, you do have an opportunity to request to continue, whether or not you are reappointed or not. And my concern was that the communication did not carry through. The second thing I would like to emphasize is that I would like to make sure that all the boards, and I'm not saying that it's not, but I would like to make sure that all the boards have equal, equitable gender and race represented on them. I happen to serve on the planning board, and it's something that I recognize. I'm the only minority that's serving on that board at this time, and I think there's one female serving on that board. So I just use that as an example to make sure that we, as a board, as a sitting board, set a good example to the rest of the public by making sure that gender and race equity is observed and followed through on. And of course, I'm not looking at any absolute statistics. I can only talk about what that I come in closest contact with. Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Pate.
Can't remember if we talked about this or not, but I don't think we have. Several of us took a trip to Lee County, to actually the Sanford, to the site there where Caterpillar is located, and took a look at a training production line. I come from the workforce arena, and these things are really very interesting to me, and I think it's very important that we take a look at this as a vision possibly for the community college, which they were there with us. Kay Apperson went with us, and Mike Haney from WCDA. And it was just very interesting to see this training production line that they use to train people for lean manufacturing. Not only do they have hands-on experience, they also step back into the classroom. So, and these skills are transferable throughout manufacturing, so it's not just has to be for Caterpillar one particular industry, but it can bring industry in. And that's just, it was a very interesting trip, and I appreciate the opportunity to go to do that. Just for those folks who are on our Veterans Committee, I've received some information from another candidate that's doing this thing, and this Veterans Committee, the bylaws and their mission, and I wanted to share with them. I'll try to go ahead and get that scheduled next week to get folks brought in so we can go ahead and get our officers squared away, and then perhaps we can take a look at the mission statement and the bylaws that we received from the Southern County, adapt those to Wayne County, and have Mr. Borden Parker finalize those for us. Anyway, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Pate. Mr. Aycock?
Yes, sir. Just a couple items. I want everyone to remember this coming weekend. This is Memorial Day weekend. We owe the privilege of sitting here conducting business for Wayne County for the people that sacrificed so much for us. And I had the pleasure last Saturday at 11:30 to attend a service at Pikeville Cemetery that the town of Pikeville and the Veterans Group in Pikeville put together. And they have done an outstanding job. They're going to place flags on all of the deceased veterans in the Pikeville Cemetery, which totals 137, 2 all the way back to the Civil War. But I just wanted to commend the people of Pikeville and the Veterans Group in Pikeville for that service. And again, remember this coming weekend, what this weekend, what the meaning of this weekend is. Thank you.
Just to close, we have spent a lot of time, and really, all of us, all 7 commissioners have spent an awful lot of time with the county manager and the county attorney to, again, make sure that we are doing everything that, first of all, is transparent as we can possibly be, open as we can possibly be, and with all of our committees and meetings, making sure that everyone is at the table and we're doing it the right way. And we've been doing that now really hard since January. And to think, and I say this with the right heart, that in any way that this board is showing any sign of discrimination is in your imagination, because that is not true. This board was elected by the people to do a job, and this board is doing a job. That's plain and simple. We're trying to find out where all the money is, and we're trying to find out how all the committees work, and we're trying to do it together. And that's just the way it is, as far as my comments. But I'm proud of this board, and this board shines in the state of North Carolina. This county shines in the state. We're very blessed to be where we are in this economic downturn, and we've worked hard to get here, and we're going to work harder to stay here, because it's not just staying. It's what we do in the future, and to make it better and to set the bar. But I'm proud of what we've done thus far, and I think the bar can be set higher, and I think we as a board are looking for that. I feel that. I see it in the meetings, and I'm very proud. I'm very proud to be chairman of this board. We have a long way to go. There are facility issues, there are taxes, there's spending, there's educating our children, there's creating jobs, there's looking after the elderly, looking after the sick, and being ready for any emergency, whether it be a tornado, an earthquake, a hurricane, or just something that just happens unexpectedly, that we're called on to react so quickly that the people are safer and they feel comfortable, but that they've got the right government that they're working, that's working for them, and showing the citizens that we are ready for anything at any time to do the best that we can, because we've got the best to do it with. We have that's the end of my comments. The closed session, I apologize for making it so long today, but we've had a lot of business. It's 12 o'clock. We want to go into closed session, but we won't have lunch. We've ordered just a box lunch to have, but I need to ask, how do we go into a closed session? I need to do that. Do we come back after the closed session before we eat the box lunch? I guess that's what I'm trying to find out, the legality here. Or do we eat?
You can take a recess for lunch and then come back in here to go into closed session if that's your desire.
But what is, it's a box lunch, they're cold cuts. We can eat for lunch.
You can actually eat while you're in closed session if you want to.
That's true, but I don't think we need to do that today. Might get indigestion.
I got it.
Let's, we'll do the closed session. So let's go into closed session. Let's do that. Mr. Parker.
You need to go into closed session to consult with an attorney employed by you to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the board.
And then we will come back after closed session, and then we'll go eat back. Let's do that. Okay, do I have a motion that we go into closed session?
Make a motion.
Mr. Aycock. Any discussion? All those in favor?